Tim, welcome to Watch One. Thanks for logging on. Today we're looking at the Zenith El Primero Stratos Flyback Rainbow Tribute Edition, 45 millimeters in brushed and polished stainless steel. You can see this Zenith El Primero Rainbow on our website, watchyouwant.com. Purchase it if you like, and if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Watch You Want Inc. Now you can see on my wrist, 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference, the Stratos Flyback Rainbow is one of the most comfortable and most adaptable 45 millimeter watches you will find for a smaller wrist. First of all, it's wonderfully thin. The watch features an integrated chronograph movement, and that's always been the El Primero's calling card, which allows the watch to be nice and flush to the skin. 14 millimeters thick at its extremity. Because of the conical caseback, it actually nestles in and sits even lower above the wrist than that. And with a minimally cantilevered unidirectional bezel with limited knurling, limited outcropping, it will fit under a long sleeve, easily under any kind of jacket, most sweaters, and even a few dress cuffs. So this is a surprisingly versatile case from that standpoint. Now, lug to lug, it measures 52 millimeters, which might be a problem if it weren't for the fact that the lugs thrust down dramatically, and they actually start the curvature of the bracelet around the wrist. The bracelet is the second part of the ergonomic triumph here. I want to emphasize that unlike many integrated bracelets, this one has the ability to pivot completely down, perpendicular to the horizontal sweep of the case, so there's no flare, there's no virtual diameter added. A lot of integrated bracelets are very stiff, so the end pieces block them from being pulled down. Zenith cleverly integrates a pivot point into the junction of the end piece and the bracelet, so that if you want, you can actually pull it inward slightly. There's really no limit on wearing this on a smaller wrist, and even if your wrist is as small as 15 centimeters, you're going to be able to wear the watch securely precisely because the bracelet design is so intelligent and accommodating of smaller wrists with tighter bends. Now, the bracelet is everything you would expect of Zenith, a true manufacturer, and you can see how thoughtfully it's been conceived. First of all, every individual link is removable. You can see those screws fixed in on both sides allow minute micro sizing so that you can get exactly the right fit for the size of your wrist. So if you have to take out more than the usual 2 or 3 links, you're not going to be up a creek here. Zenith gives you a lot of flexibility. Moreover, I have to say I've seen more daylight between the links of Vacheron Constantin overseas bracelets, Patek Philippe Nautilus, even Audemars Piguet Royal Oak bracelets. The tolerance is here, and you can see the pre-curve of each individual link. It's unbelievable. This is one of the tightest fitting link chains I've ever seen, but to no detriment to the flexibility or ergonomic excellence of the bracelet. Moreover, the taper, as I run my finger along its flank, exhibits none of the steps or notches of crudely built bracelets that often look the part but don't feel the part when tolerances between the links, when progressive taper comes into play. This watch, it passes the tactile test. You can't feel the steps between the links. You can just visually sense the tapering of its width as it approaches the clasp. Beautifully contrast finished with polished center links, brushed outer links, and then polished flanks. This is beautifully done, and again, because of the taper of each individual link and the pre-curve built in, it flows seamlessly, almost pre-curving to the wrist and blending down into the almost invisible double deployant twin trigger clasp. This is one of the best pieces I've seen, one of the best of its kind. Not only is it beautifully finished with no rough cut, stamped, or otherwise machined marks resulting from the original manufacturer, completely polished, completely finished, beautifully built with a twin trigger actuation that's almost a mechanical work of art in its own right. I mean, look at those polished pins right down to that level of detail. That's the level of attention to detail, value, and engineering you get from Zenith. And of course, when you close it, you can see this version is still almost newer than new in the original packing plastic. It has almost no profile, being completely flush. Like the rest of the bracelet, seamless is the word that comes to mind, portrayed only by the presence of the Zenith Star logo and the engraved company name. Nice and discreet. I like it a lot. Beautiful and beautifully built. But the highlight is the watch itself. Now, it's a obvious tribute to a watch that's an icon among collectors, and not just Zenith collectors, but the 1997 to 2001 Zenith El Primero Rainbow Flyback, the French aviator's watch, is a modern classic, notable because it's one of the few Zenith models that has mindshare beyond the small circles of Zenith collectors. Let's face it, Zenith is kind of a connoisseur's brand, but it's also one of the few mechanical watches that's developed a cult following and a collector community in the modern era. It's not a vintage watch, and in fact they flew with the French Air Force into the 2000s, yet it's already warranted a tribute model because it has so much charisma. The combination of the color, the military history, and the legitimate success of a mechanical chronograph in an official government contract capacity in the era of computers and quartz watches is charismatic, romantic, and it's just irresistible to those of us who love mechanical watches. So the Rainbow caliber 405 Flyback Aviator's chronograph, here reborn. The original was 40, this is a 45. The original used the caliber 405Z, this is the caliber 405B. Works just like the original, and as with every El Primero since 1969, short of those used in the Rolex Daytona, this one has a charismatic 5 hertz beat, that is 10 beats per second. So against the ear it sounds different. It almost has a double step cadence to it. And you can see the sweep against the tachometer rehaut of this watch shows that it also looks different, smoother and more progressive, almost a seamless sweep rather than a notched tick. It's the 10 beats per second that makes this one so distinctive and really lies in a large part of its claim to fame. But all of the elements that made the Rainbow, not just the El Primero distinctive, are here reborn on a larger scale. A matte black dial so as not to reflect glare into the eyes. You can see the coloration of the bezel, in this case unidirectional dive style with a luminescent index. You can see the use of color for the sake of contrast on the dial and instant readability, and those classical Arabic numerals pilot style faithful to the original. This is a watch that looks the business, but again it just steps the size up to conform to modern tastes, offer a little bit more wrist presence than that original 40mm, but make no mistake, the quality, the content, the legibility, all of that is retained. And with 100-meter water resistance and again a unidirectional bezel paired with a screw-down crown, this one can actually function as an all-around sports watch in a way the original Aviator's Rainbow could not. This one is definitely swim-friendly. But the highlight is not just the historically evocative front of this watch, which you can see has a great deal of depth in addition to color. It's also the case back, where you can see that caliber 405B flyback in action. Now before I jump to the back, I want to jump back in flyback fashion. You can see how the flyback action of this example works. So it's not just an El Primero, but it's a complicated El Primero with 31 jewels and 331 parts. Beautifully finished. It features the hallmarks of Zenith movement decoration, the blued screws representing those screws used to actually adjust the movement, the bridges featuring perlage, an engine turning pattern generally used on base plates, in Zenith's case actually used on bridges, a unique treatment, one that sets it apart. All of the polished screws, where you can see them, represent screws not used for adjustment but used for physical assembly, holding elements together, and then there's gorgeous graining of levers and wheels to a standard that you would expect, frankly, at a higher price point than this. Once again, Zenith's hallmark is not just the fact that it is a manufacturer, but because it's a manufacturer, it delivers value. It's a beautiful movement to look at, and among automatics, the El Primero is one of the most attractive, being a classical column wheel design. In recent years, Zenith has also started evacuating the winding rotor so that you can actually see portions of the movement through its skeletonized portions. And again, in a distinctive finishing fashion, the only place I see Côte de Genève, a common movement decoration technique, on this watch is on the winding rotor itself. A 52-hour power reserve, so despite the 5 Hz beat rate, you've got solidly more than the standard, well, I should say industry standard, 40 to 42 hours of autonomy, so you've even got a long power reserve on top of everything else. And we know, true to history, this movement is mil-spec tough. So it's a rugged, everyday companion that, again, you can wear for aviation duty, if you want to swim, jump in the ocean, if you're just a desk diver. This is the all-purpose watch, and with a wonderfully thin case and a comfortable bracelet, this is one that you can wear with a long sleeve in situations where formal attire and long-term comfort are important. You can see this reborn classic, the Zenith El Primero Stratos Flyback Rainbow, 45mm in stainless steel, on our website, watchyouwant.com.